call to order the Commission on Police Practices Executive Committee meeting Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. And then you can call the roll.
Yes. Okay, Chair Doug Case.
Here.
Thank you. First Vice Chair Ada Rodriguez.
Here.
Thank you. Second Vice Chair Clovis Honoré.
Here.
Thank you. Committee Chair Bonnie Benitez.
Here.
Thank you. Committee Chair Alec Byer.
Here.
Thank you. Committee Chair Armando Flores, you said he's 10 minutes away or so? Okay. Committee Chair Darlan Molnat.
Here.
Thank you. And Committee Chair Imani Robinson.
Present.
Thank you. That concludes roll call.
Okay, we don't have the minutes from last month because Alina was out last week, and so we'll approve those at the next executive committee meeting. Do we have anybody online from the public?
We do not have anybody online or in person.
Okay, sure. And if you can notify me if anybody comes online, otherwise I won't call on somebody comments for each item unless there's somebody here. I don't have much for the chair report that's not covered under other items, other than I talked with Lindsay from the chief's office this morning, and they're not going to be able to do the My 90 presentation next week, because the person who handles that is at the FBI Academy, and so I thought we could post something next month, which is fine, because we'll have a pretty busy agenda next week anyway. And that's really all I have. Interim Executive Director report.
Yeah, I just want to report that the operating procedures is calendared for Monday in front of the full City Council at 2 p.m. I'm going to pre-brief the council staff tomorrow morning at 10 p.m. Because it will be a discussion item. Hopefully we'll be able to answer a lot of their questions tomorrow rather than on Monday, but expecting it to be referred to meeting.
Do you know where on the agenda it is?
We're the first discussion item.
Okay,
So we'll be fresh.
okay, so I'll be there promptly at 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, then we'll move on to new business. The first item is the support of AB 847, which is the bill we discussed at the meeting in May. Do you have an update from the Government Affairs Office?
I do not. So I reached out to him beginning or end of last week, and he's pretty difficult to get a hold of. He's pretty busy. His name is Walter Bishop. And, up until this morning, I hadn't heard back from him. My computer's down, so I think you can check this afternoon, but I'll keep checking with him.
Okay, and then at the last meeting, Armando had a bill he wanted us to add to the agenda, but I did some research and found out that the bill is dead, so I didn't want to put a dead bill on the agenda. But since then, I got an email from the ACLU, which I thought we may want to take a position on, and it's AB 1388, and I'll get a chance to look at the link. But basically what it does is it precludes police officers from signing non-disclosure agreements when they're terminated, so that their public doesn't find out they're terminated, and then they're also not reported to the post. And this would preclude that, make previous ones void, and then clarify that all terminations for the offenses that are listed in what was SB2 are required to be post is required to be notified of those. I think it's a no-brainer, and so any discussion?
I agree with you.
Okay, and so I'll go ahead and I guess we don't really need a motion here because the commission itself will approve it, but it looks like there's a consensus to put that on the agenda. Okay, so next is following up on Jerry Treat's audit recommendations. You may remember at the last executive committee meeting, we decided to refer most of the items there to the policy committee because they were divided into categories related to specific policies, like the pretext stops and use of force, courtesy, non-biased policing, et cetera, et cetera. But the first set of recommendations were regarding the investigation process, the complaint investigation process. And so I thought it made sense to handle those separately and go ahead and do those first and then do the others as the policy committee deals with those issues. And so hopefully you had a chance to look at what I came up with on the agenda. There were 15, I think, 17 findings. The last two were actually recommendations to the CPP. And before I get into those, Armando sent me an email last night with some suggestions for improving the SDPD's complaint form so that it's more accessible, especially to people with vision disabilities, and also there were several things. One of them was the ability to upload more than one document and the number of characters or words that were allowed in making the complaint, and he had several different suggestions. And I thought that relates to this because actually one of Jerry's findings actually dealt with the complaint form. And so I told him that I was amenable to adding it to our list of recommendations, and have him, he did whenever Armando does something, he does it all the way. And he prepared an audit report of the SDPD thing, and I told him if we could include that as an attachment in addition to Jerry's report. And so when he gets here, I can have him explain that. But let me, and the intent is that I'm going to send this memo, I may revise it depending upon if there's any comment here today, to the full commission. The full commission will vote on the recommendations. I probably will try to do it in a consent format to see if there's any, if everybody, a lot of them I don't think are controversial, and see if everybody agrees, and if there's particular findings or recommendations they want to debate or discuss further, we can pull those and then approve the rest. And let me go through them briefly. The first one had to do with informal complaints, which I think everybody knows what that is. When the complainant agrees to have it handled informally between the officer and his or her supervisor, and there would be no court investigation, and there would be no possibility of discipline because no investigation. And Jerry wasn't sure that was permitted under the penal code. And so I had Bart do some research, and he concluded that it was permissible. And there are some actual real benefits of having informal. There's a lot of people who just want to voice a complaint and have their complaint heard and want it shared with the officer, and they don't want to have a full-on investigation. And any investigation, any controllable investigation takes a lot of city resources, even a simple one, but it's not sustained, it costs thousands of dollars because of staff time and so forth. And so I think there's a benefit of doing it. But as Jerry pointed out, there's no real guidelines in the city's, well, Bart's research said that we could do it, they could do it as long as they had a process, which they do have a process in their Internal Affairs Operations Manual, which I'm not sure I saw before I did the research, but I have the link here if you want to look at the Student Affairs, the Internal Affairs.
Gaslight, man.
Actually, I think it'd be interesting if you have any spare time to actually take a look at their manual, their operations manual. So my recommendation was twofold. Number one was that they should not allow it. They should only allow it for category
Couldn't
two,
find my
well,
memo.
category two, complaints, it seems like if you're complaining about, use of force or, anything major, there should be an investigation. Secondly, is that they should develop a standard script, for, all of you, if you've done any case review of listening to interviews with complainants where they explain to the complainant the difference, and actually they do usually a pretty good job and they don't pressure them and they make it clear it's your choice. But sometimes the way they present it can make it sound kind of ominous if you want to go that route. They talk about union reps and they talk about discipline and so forth. So my recommendation is that, and also in the past with the CRB, there were issues of them kind of pushing people to do informals, and we made an issue of that, which is why I think that they are being real diligent now about saying it's your choice and trying to do that. But I think my second recommendation is that the department have a script that the investigator use each time, so that there's a
Yeah, it's standardized. Because I remember, I have no idea what case it was, but I remember listening to a particular investigator, and it did not sound impartial at all. It sounded a bit like, you could, and then, yeah, I think a standard script would be great.
okay. And then the third recommendation, which is actually a recommendation to us, is that when we have a performance auditor on board, that one of that person's duties would be to periodically audit to make sure that they're using the script and to make sure that they're documenting that. And so the auditor would go and actually listen to the interview to make sure that the policy is applied. If you have any concerns or objections, just chime in. And Armando, I mentioned your thing, but we'll talk about that when I get to the others. Finding two had to do with the statement at the end of complaints. You may recall when Dwayne was here, he told us that we really had no choice but to add it to our own complaint form because of California Supreme Court case, and that the time before the case, the SDPD was not using it either, and as a result of that case, they started using it again, and it seems pretty clear that it's mandatory, and we don't really have an option. We don't have an option, but we may have an option. But as Wade explained, and I agree, is that since we're required to give our complaints to SDPD, we should get them to acknowledge the statement as well. Otherwise, the PD would have to go back and contact them and couldn't accept the complaint unless they had that acknowledgement. And so my recommendation on finding two is that we not do anything.
I did want to put in that on our complaint form at the bottom, it currently reads, the online one currently reads something to the effect like, I agree with the above, and we have the complainant sign that. It's not required, so I'm asking our dean to alter that to read just like the police do. It says, I've read it, I understand it.
And the next one, jury found cases, and I think I recall reviewing a case recently with the body worn camera. It was not clear whether or not if the person on the scene wants to file a complaint and ask for a supervisor. If the supervisor is on the scene, you would need to ask another supervisor, or is the supervisor on the scene the person to take the complaint? I forget how that was resolved, but the person who was complaining, Aiden Kasha, I don't remember for sure, was saying, I want to talk to another supervisor, not supervisor on the scene. So I think that should be clarified. And it's recommendation, would be Jerry's recommendation is to clarify what the policy is.
I think there's a little kind of typo, something in that recommendation, unless I just can't read it. I can help.
For the supervisor on the scene or request
Well, yeah,
or
I-
with.
The
Yeah,
or,
when
I think the
it-
or with
Yeah,
means,
what actually, yeah, there were a couple of typos that Mark found that was one of them.
okay.
Uh, And the next one had to do with frivolous complaints, and Jerry's asked the same question there, can you have a frivolous complaint? And General Counsel said they could, but as long as they were documented in a memorandum to file, and so the recommendation is that we should see those documentations, so if they think it's frivolous, we should get a copy of that, because all the complaints come to us, so we get a copy within 5 days, and we need to know what the disposition of those complaints are. Did the complaint want to be informal? The department decides that it was frivolous. They also can determine that it's miscellaneous, which usually means either they don't know who the officer is and can't figure out who the officer is, or there's no policy that they can assign it to him. So,
So are we getting the informal now?
no.
No. That is a discussion I remember we
Yeah,
had.
what, and actually, we don't, we're not allowed under the ordinance to review and evaluate informals, because it says that if the complainant doesn't want an investigation, the commission is not entitled to review it.
However, the quote unquote frivolous, it's not informal, it's something
Well, yeah,
that
frivolous
they
is different.
decide, right?
So, yeah, so frivolous, I think, yeah, the ordinance isn't saying anything about frivolous, and I think that if they're gonna declare it frivolous, we should at least get a copy of it to see whether or not we.
Not only that, they should have a clear guideline of what frivolous.
And I think they kind of do in their manual. I'll go back and take a look at that, but they.
But because we can't review and we can't know, like, what are the volume of the informals, or doesn't it seem like something we should know?
Well, we should, because they should be telling us we get a complaint what the disposition is. And so if they classify it as informal, we should know that. And so they should be telling us whether there's, which was they are or not. Are they, Arlena?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so we are finding it out. And how many frivolous ones do we find?
Oh, how many? I don't know, but they do let us know whether it's classified as a miscellaneous complaint.
Anyways, the recommendation is if they classify it as frivolous, that we should have a copy of that, because we have a duty to review and evaluate complaints, and that's not one that, anyway.
I did want to add, the investigators have been looking at some of the trends, and one of the trends is the complaints that we take in and forward to the SDPD, apparently about 30% of them are being designated as miscellaneous. And so we're going to continue to do that, but that's why this is super important, because we need some strict definitions of when they're going to file something miscellaneous, and then which ones are and why is it miscellaneous.
Another reason for
Miscellaneous as
miscellaneous
opposed to
can be that,
Frivolous or
and when miscellaneous can
Cat one or
include,
cat two?
well, miscellaneous can include they can't find out who the officer was. It could be that it's a different jurisdiction, so it could be the sheriff's office or another department, or what they're alleging there's no policy about, and so it's not, to investigate them, they can't.
Yeah, but doesn't that speak to the complainant's lack of understanding of their language in the complaint that points to a specific policy, and
Which I guess-
arguably the department is not looking closely enough at how complaints being framed to say, oh, this would apply here, which speaks to something that we were talking about last time about education for people about how to file a complaint and understanding the policy.
Am I allowed to
Yeah.
say something?
I guess you are.
If you're very generic in your, right,
Um,
then it's gonna be on the police file, sorry.
So, no, it's okay. So that, just to add to that, John A. as a complaint coordinator would need to be able to, well, she does. So when she receives a complaint and it doesn't have all of the information, she'll request that before sending it to internal affairs, knowing that that is what it'll lead to, and if she can't get that information, then it goes, still has to go to IA.
And do you know does John A. send a complainant a link to the policies so the complainants can reference the policies they think have been violated?
I
There's a
don't
lot of
know,
work
I don't think
On the
she
part of the
can.
complainant, I understand.
It's just because that's us suggesting, like, how do I say that? We don't want to have part in like saying, well, this is,
So you should
Like,
yeah, like this is
Well,
sounds
it's
like
not, you're looking at
discriminated.
this
or-
policy, it's when filing your complaint, take into consideration the SCPD policies. Here's a link to where you can see that. That's
could do that.
impartial.
Diane, can we do that now? Do we have a link to the,
No, but I like that. We could
we
send
can
that
do that,
into the template. But
good idea?
But I thought also, isn't there something somewhere that I read that you can make a complaint and you don't have to know what the policy is?
Yeah, you don't have to know the policy, but they're, what they're saying is that what the person is alleging, there's no policy to cover that. And so it's,
And it might be the way they're communicating it.
right, which is why
It makes it hard to.
which then makes, the recommendation is that, like frivolous, that should be something we take a look at. And all they're required to do right now is write a memo to the file. They don't send the memo to they don't give a copy of the memo to the complainant, and they don't give a copy to us. And my thought was that they should do both of those things. Finding 6,
But in your recommendation, you're only saying to us.
it says the complainant with a copy to us.
Are we on?
Number 5.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, we
Sorry.
talked between 4 and 5.
Okay, I just want to be clear, we don't get the informals, correct? And that's in the ordinance?
Yeah, we're not permitted to get this one.
Right, but the issue is around the frivolous and the miscellaneous.
Which actually, just as an aside, that may be interesting in the future, because the ordinance gives us the ability to set up a mediation program. And which is kind of similar to the informal program, except that they get a chance to actually meet face to face with the officer, which I think is wonderful. And we'll need to take a look at how the language of the ordinance affects that. They probably should be given the opportunity to decide whether they want informal mediation or formal investigation at the same time. But that's down the road.
So when someone goes into a department and wants to file a complaint, they could also say, well, that should be formal, or no, that should be informal. Do they give them the option of that? Is that how this conversation is going?
Yeah, well, before you,
Oh,
but,
yeah.
anyway, well, the investigator, when the IA investigator contacts them, they explain the difference in the good and stress.
And what we talked about is that there should be a script for that every IA officer uses, that doesn't try to influence them either way, that it's just standard language. And then they check a box saying, I use the standard language, and we have reporting indicating that that's just it. Impartial. Yeah.
Okay, so finding 6 was,
Wait, can I just, sorry, back up. So for finding 4, it just says send it to us. Then finding 5 applies to frivolous also. So my question is, do we want to say to the complainant
That's a good
and us on 4? Just for clarity?
I think that makes sense.
Yes.
And so recommendation 4 would be to the complainant as well. The recommendation 6, that's the thing we talked about at the last meeting, and that is that sometimes internal affairs doesn't interview the complainant, but that's just strange. And usually, if they want to interview them, they usually do a pretty good job of making an attempt to contact them. They send certified letters, and I've even seen them actually go out to the residents of the person to try to find them. But sometimes they think that we don't need any information from them, and I don't agree with that. I think IA should talk to every complainant, even if the complaint gives them all the information they need. I still think that they should talk to the complainant.
It helps the plaintiff feel like they're being taken seriously, right?
And number 7 is, I don't know what Jerry was referring to there. They didn't find any examples in the report. The finding was that they do not always obtain and preserve evidence that may be material to an investigation. The recommendation is that FPPD should promptly secure and analyze all evidence controlled for a complaint investigation, including interviews with all material witnesses and complainants, as well as the records of any kind that could affect the outcome of the investigation.
I think we've seen a few cases where seemingly material witnesses were not.
Right.
interviewed.
Now, it would have been,
But if you didn't do it, who's talking about you should have done more digging, or just that you should preserve what you have?
I think it also depends on the whole process.
it's both, it says obtain and preserve.
Oh, okay.
And,
Oh, yeah, I see that.
Yeah, I think it's also to do with the entire process of the format of putting three different complaints. When you look on the complaint website, you can only upload 3 different types of media.
we'll get to that when we get to your thing.
It's relevant.
Okay.
And so when you're constrained with the amount of media you can upload, but also you don't get direction on how to even upload more, or who to contact, or how to go about the process, then there's going to be holes in the investigation already. There's going to be a lack of evidence. We're going to have less to give context on what's going on, and then the investors are going to say, oh, well, that's all the information you provided, that's all I have to go off of. So I'm not going to contact them. And 250 word character, or word limit on the incident. That's it.
Well, I was thinking about, a case where it was in a business area, like the gas dump or something, and there's all these cameras all over the place, and they did not get any camera data at all. So what my little note about this one is, instead of saying, if you give specific examples, we could learn.
Yeah, well, I won't say that when we send the recommendation to the department. This is the commission, but I think we may have.
Or should
we
we
have
ask
our own.
Jerry?
Yeah, and part of it was that he was restricted in what he could say, because he was charged with looking at trends rather than specific cases, and there was some real legal boundaries on what he had to do, and so that's why he didn't talk about individual cases. And so obviously he found it, otherwise he wouldn't have mentioned it. But I think we've seen cases like the one we said, and so the department.
But that's like a generic enough example that you're not violating.
Right. So they may ask us questions, and so we will respond to.
There's another little typo in that one, unfortunately, comma, the.
That was the other one.
Okay.
Okay. So finding 8 was. Well, this is the one we've been talking about forever. Open-ended questions. And I've been bringing up the IA. This escalates it by putting in a recommendation to the chief. And my recommendation is that what meeting we had with IA, we were discussing that. We asked what training do IA get. We understand that there's an IA course and post they take. And there's also one on investigation or interviewing. And we asked if they were required to do that, and they said no. But we strongly encourage it, and so our recommendation is that it should be required.
It should be required.
Obviously, this is not a new issue. It's going on ever since I was on the CRB. And some investigators are good at it, some of them are poor at it. But it seems like almost every week or every month we have cases where we have that issue of
So I don't think all new IA investors, I think it needs to be everybody.
Yeah.
Because the old ones are the ones that aren't doing it right,
Which is teaching the young ones to not do it as well.
right?
Yeah, I fully support Commissioner Malmont's comment, and I would add in our recommendation that we believe it's appropriate that disciplinary action be imposed for this conduct, because it's ongoing. And we should be noticed when disciplinary action is imposed on whom and what the disciplinary action is.
But first they have to require it.
Pardon me?
First they have to require it.
Right,
Then.
that we're gonna recommend.
Commission
Yeah.
fire is all on B. A,
Yeah.
mandatory, B,
Yeah.
discipline.
Because they don't care right now, but anyway, that's, I was just about to do my soapbox, but I'm not gonna do it.
The next one is on the credibility analysis of witnessing. And Jerry noted that the department seldom does that. They just say everybody says they don't want to get into to this conflicting testimony, how they make that determination. And recommendation was that they should be trained on credibility analysis of witnessing. That may be included in the post-training, I don't know, but if they are, they're not utilizing it, so I just pointing it out.
We want to say amendment, take the word new out.
Yes, please.
What number are we? I wanna go back just to 8, just one comment, on the recommendation. I think it should be all IA investigators, and I think it should be, possibly, recurring, like maybe every 2 years refresher, and a new techniques, change, best practices, yeah. If anything else, any other protection you get with current
I
training.
guess so they could do periodically again.
On which one? 8, yeah, the recommendation.
And that's like, this, for the individual training, you sent us?
Well, no, it'd be mandatory.
Okay, good. Like, you don't want an optional
No,
training.
mandatory.
Okay.
The requirement is mandatory.
And part B, the discipline when you go get the training.
Well, when you said, what number were you putting in there?
What's required
No, after recurring.
periodically.
Periodically.
Yeah, is that,
Recurring.
too big?
A little bit, yeah.
like annually or,
Right.
So I'm not sure that you
2
do
years.
annually.
Not
Okay.
annually, but
I don't know, I'm just like.
2 years. I mean, I think it would be between the 1 and 2. I think anything above 3 is like not normal practice. Yeah.
I think periodically, because it could be like periodically every 7 months.
Exactly.
That's
At a minimum, biannually.
I don't know. Just
But
throwing
that
it
is-
out there for thought.
But oftentimes the investigators aren't there more than 2 years, and they cycle in and out.
Well, that might work too, because every 2 years
No,
there's a
annually.
mandatory training, so even if they are out, at least. Oh, make it annual. Because if it's just a small team and they rotate, I mean, you gotta stay up, and if you get a new IA, how is somebody who's not up to date with their practices trained in the first place?
These poor people have to work so much overtime.
Oh my God.
And now they have this mandatory training that they're gonna do overtime.
She's referring to the report.
Sorry.
What were your thoughts then about an annually was too often?
Well, I mean, it seems like if you've gone through your training on how to do it, you shouldn't have to do it every year.
Once they're doing it right, then
I say let's come to like this biannually.
Well, how about that, if, in cases where they don't find it, in cases where they are asking open questions, they should be required to do it.
Not gonna be training. because they're not getting it trained. For retraining. So initial and.
And retraining
When there's deficiencies.
Yeah.
It's a little kind of a disciplinary. We're feeding them and now you have to get trained because you can't do your job properly.
And how is it determined that it's effective?
Well, I guess it'd be-
Yeah, well,
I said, no,
we
but we
see
would point it out,
Yeah.
you know, because when we review the cases, we point it out. And usually they agree with us.
Yeah.
I can't think of a case where we pointed it out and they said, no, they should not have asked open and stuff. And so, yeah, I like that, and require retraining, and I can work on the wording.
Well, I like efficiency. It's simple, straightforward.
Anyway, move on to, actually, I think we already did that.
Yeah.
Finding 10 was, that they don't always, fully explore allegations of the complainant with mental health issues.
So do we want our recommendation for 8, 9, and 10 to be the same?
You mean taking out the word name?
Yes.
And retraining.
All have the same, yeah.
I agree.
They all go together.
And then, I'm not sure it's necessary for denying because it's not something we, it's easily noticed. It's hard to determine whether or not they.
Yeah.
I would, it's hard to find whether they're deficient and whether or not they're being credible. Finding 11, oh, this isn't, interesting. I'm not making this wrong one. Well, yeah, my recommendation is we include what Jerry said verbatim, is the department's complaint investigation system in practice allows department officials to investigate an incident unless they have a personal, familiar, or professional interest. SDPD should ensure that its policies, practices, and training specific to complaint investigations prohibit any officer from acting in an investigative or decision-making role for any complaint investigation that may implicate their personal, familiar, or professional interest.
As city officials, don't they automatically have to abide by conflict of interest?
They do, but the city's conflict of interest codes are primarily financial conflict of interest. And they don't really,
Right.
And they don't really look at issues like this. And so I guess what we're suggesting is that they put into their manual that if you know the person or you have a relationship with them, I mean, and they may already be, obviously Jerry included in his recommendations, so he found that as a trend. And he didn't have specific cases again, but he wouldn't have included that unless it's occurred. And so,
It's not just a one-off.
right. Okay, now 12 is a big one. And that is what happens if we want, right? His recommendation was that PD should consider outsourcing complaint investigations to a trained and experienced civilian investigator in circumstances of department conflicts of interest in order to provide neutrality, eliminate actual perceived conflicts of interest, and to provide greater confidence in such investigation. Greater confidence in such investigations were objectively conducted. My recommendation was that when you have cases that involve the command staff, that involve IA staff, or members of their immediate family, that it should be referred to the city attorney's office. That's outside of the department, and they're trained to do investigations, and they can make the decision whether or not they want to hire a investigator. And the issue is not a theoretical one. We had a CPP had a case a couple of years ago where the complaint was made against the chief's son, and for I don't remember the exact specifics, but there was an automobile accident that the control vehicle did damage, and the CPP felt that should have an independent investigation, and Chief Eslight went bonkers and suggested that.
I'm sure.
Literally, if you know Chief Eslight, you know what it's like when his face turns red and he starts yelling. That was one of those situations. But even last week we had at our meeting in public comment, we had a allegation that involved top echelons of the department. So my recommendation is to refer when the previous case came up, the recommendation, I remember Charmaine was part of the discussion, but I don't remember whether it was the cabinet or whatever, but the suggestion was made that the city attorney should do it. There's no city policy that says what happens when that situation arises. And I thought that was a good suggestion. Because I know whether Margaret, you'll get in just a second, but Bart was going to have Aaron look at what other departments in California do. Have you found any information yet? Okay, and so hopefully we'll get more information by the meeting next week.
Yeah, I think so. I know Aaron reached out to 5 or 6, I think, California ones like LA and San Francisco, at least a day or two ago. We hadn't heard back. I haven't touched base with him, so he may have already heard back. I just started touch base.
He's on the list.
I have a quick general question. When we do get after meeting confirmed, in such case, don't our investigators, are they able to investigate?
The confidence to investigators.
That's their job, right?
My comment was going to be, I have no faith in the city attorney's office. I've got experience with them the last couple of years to do it confidently in this matter. So,
like right now we
why
can.
couldn't it be us?
Right now we can.
Yeah, but they would do their own anyway, and we're suggesting they shouldn't do their own. And if it meets one of the categories, the commission can vote to do an investigation. But this is saying that the department should not have internal affairs do it. They should have somebody else do it.
Can we recommend that we do it? We're making a recommendation. We have our investigators.
But the department's required to do their own. Is required to do their own investigation of the personnel, and so.
So if it's something that falls within our purview, then we have operating procedures and council procedures, and we can do it.
Right.
But we're talking about
Them not doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean-
Internal investigation should go to the city attorney's office. If it's within our purview, we can still do it. It'll be, included fact.
But it wouldn't be a replacement for IA having an outsourced.
And so, is Aaron online?
Yeah, but I don't think so. I don't know if it's
I have a question, Alec. You were saying something about not trusting the city attorney's office, and can you
Lack
clarify?
of competencies.
Can you clarify what that is?
Yeah.
'Cause-
The thing with Wayne Bennett, where he'd been working on the solution towards our getting our investigative powers going, and they pull a rug out from him at the last minute, and we had the ad hoc committee to talk about our reaction. That's the first one. The second one, more recently, was where the city attorney reversed himself on something. I can't remember
Oh,
what
it was you.
Yeah. And there was
Yeah.
something else where they reversed. Was that it? I thought there were at least one other instance where the city attorney's office at the last second, come in with a whole different interpretation of the law and take off most of the capability from us or put us in a bad spot.
If
Well,
I,
and is this, I was like, this recommendation is saying outsourcing meaning something independent, right? Outsourcing to an independent. And the city attorney is not
not
independent when it comes to city employees. That's my question.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah, and so you're right, and so that is a, well, why don't we defer this discussion until we see what other cities are doing? But I think that, I mean, you're raising a good point, but my recommendation is different than Jerry's. Mine was that's the attorney's office do it. Jerry's was to have a, well, and then the issue is that who chooses the independent investigator? Okay, and so you don't want the police chief to say, I got this complaint against me, so I want you to investigate.
Exactly.
Which is why I worded it, we could have the city attorney, and the city attorney, if they want to have it, they want to outsource it. They're the ones who decide who's going to outsource it rather than the,
I don't know.
I think that's a
right.
lot. I think we're here and that's what, I mean, it's basically our job.
yeah, but they have to
This
do
is
the,
not gonna be us. But if I were the department,
Yes.
I would want another law enforcement agency to do it. Just like with Officer
well,
Law shootings.
that's another,
If I were the department, this is what I would want.
Go into
This is what I would think
law
is-
enforcement.
Correct, outside of STP. I would wanna go to the sheriff's office or something like that. Because there's trust within law
Exactly,
enforcement
of
to
course.
manage.
see, and that's different than
I'm not saying
Jerry.
that's right or wrong, I'm just saying
But
that I believe that's how they would look at this.
Well, and actually, that's another option piece. Jerry was a experienced civilian investigator. You're saying a investigator from another department, agency.
Yeah, maybe or maybe or.
Yeah, and maybe we can give several options.
I'm curious to find out what Aaron,
Yeah, and so,
what? Oh, I see.
Okay, and so I'm sure we'll have a discussion on that, but we have at least three suggestions.
Sure.
One is the city attorney's office. One is outside
Another law enforcement agency.
another agency.
Post.
I don't think post.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
But I don't know what's determined to be serious misconduct. But they do.
Okay.
Okay.
Then that's enough. We have
Kind of get the definition, because I'm not sure that they meet the criteria.
okay. But the police chief,
Well, I was saying that the definition of serious is in the state code. We looked at it before for some other issues.
and but does it talk about the investigations of like police chiefs and
It mentioned Attorney General.
why don't you do some investigation for next week and see whether or not that could be something that post.
Yeah,
does.
action item. Got
Attorney
it.
General.
Okay, so that one we don't know what we're gonna do yet, but hopefully we'll get some, and I'm sure, or I'm not, I shouldn't say I'm sure, I would assume, that other departments have encountered this issue and they have a policy. If they don't, maybe we'll be, leaders, yes.
When should we anticipate a report back and from whom? Because apparently, Commissioner Rodriguez is doing some research that you asked for
Next week, I mean, the plan is next week, we're gonna make these recommendations.
So we're anticipating that our policy manager will also have.
Right. And our recommendation.
To the commission.
To the commission, yeah, and our recommendation may end, I mean, it could end up with several options. But let's wait till next week. But we've got some good ideas there. The next one was fairly straightforward. The department misses their internal deadlines often. His recommendation, they should develop a holistic work plan to meet the department's internal deadline, to complete an investigation, periodically report an audit of investigation deviations of these deadlines. And so I'm going to suggest that, but I also want to point out to the department that when they take longer to do their investigation, it affects us because the 1 year clock is still ticking. And so when they finish it on the 10th month or 11th month, we don't have time to do our own. At 14,
Just as an aside with that, I don't want to belabor it, but in terms of building public trust and relationships with the community, the timeliness of these investigations and these processes is meaningful to the people who have complained. It's not just about procedure and about us, it helps the department. It shows that the department is responsive, so.
Oh. Oh, you want to?
Do you have enough charge right now? So that
Yes,
she
I should be
can,
able to.
I can give you my card for it. I can, I'll.
There you are.
Thank you.
And not only does the complainant want it to be resolved, but the officers want it to be resolved. Officers don't like having complaints
Over their
over
head.
their head. Al?
Yeah, on 13, we need to also ask for consequences, recommended consequences to be imposed, because clearly these deadlines, these are professional, may not rise to misconduct, but it's professional failure. I mean, any of us in our jobs, if we have deadlines to meet, we fail to meet those deadlines, there need to be consequences for, especially when it appears to be, an ongoing problem. So we need to add recommendations for consequences. Thank you.
I mean, the same kind of, the things that we spoke about, or that you may not be aware about the issues with the intake of these cases. I know it's website which I'm gonna talk about last, but this is super relevant because there's an intake bottleneck that's causing delays. And I created a chart that's like, it adds per day kind of aggregate delays for each type of issue. Like, for example, the missing uploads due to the file cap, 21 days on average per case. And we 45 cases per year. That's 945 backlog days. Think about how much that translates, and that pushes towards that 1 year marker. I mean, that pushes, like, it helps when you have one case, but when you have like 45, then you're not going to meet the deadlines at all. There's also the narrative follow that. Like when they don't have enough information off the bat, they have to reach back out. They have to get all the information back. That 14 days on average, looking at different departments all over the US. In total, 30 cases per year, let's say, 420 days backlog. That's going to be an issue, and that's going to also push back. On top of the other issue, officer ID clarification. If they can't get their ID right off the bat, and they have to reach back out, 10 days of discovering that is added. 25 cases per year, let's say, 250 backlog days. Added on to that other issue, and the other issue. And then the last would be English proficiency interpreter duties. Like that would be adding 28 days to get a translator to work with the complainant and get accurate information from them. So that, let's say there's only 15 cases per year, would add 420 backlog days. And none of that is on the front-facing website to support the people in their translation needs, support the blind community, support the deaf community, support people with cognitive accessibility needs. There is no support in any of those regards. And then even for the general public, you can only upload 3 videos, but also 250 characters. And you're not going to get an email saying, hey, upload more videos. You're not going to get any other information. You think that that form is the end goal. And it doesn't even give you information. You can't submit it from there. You have to go into the office and still go into the report. That's what it says at the bottom. At the very bottom of the form, it says to submit this, go into the department store. So why did you waste your time?
Anyway, so going back to the issue here is that you don't always, the fact that they don't meet their deadline may not be a deficiency of the person who didn't meet the deadline, because there could be extenuating circumstances, they could have their workload, but the audit should indicate why there was a deviation and should take corrective action. Corrective action, I'll add some language there regarding correction action if the audit indicates such. Number 14 is been a favorite of mine for a long time, and I think it's really critical, is that oftentimes what an IA investigates is not what the complainant is complaining about. And an IA tries to put things in neat little boxes because they want to investigate this or that or whatever, and I understand that because their duty is to prepare policy to do that, but oftentimes they miss the mark. Or there are things that a person says in their interview that is not consequential. It may not be something that they mentioned initially. The point is that I think well, what I suggested, and some IA investigators in the past have done a really good job of this, and I think it should be done. It should be required to be done every time. Is at the end of the interview, you list all the allegations, and then you ask them 2 questions: did I state those correctly? And am I missing anything? And you give them an opportunity to do that. And then what they put in their report, the allegation, should be exactly what the person said. This is what my complaint is, and that doesn't always happen.
This is a lot. We first have to get them to start interviewing the complainant.
Yeah, we'll see. You're right.
And then
It's an overhaul from the funnel,
Yeah.
We'll see. And those 2 things are that's a really good point, are related, because if you don't interview the complainant,
you can't get
you
this statement.
can't get that. So if I can get the department to accept that, I will feel like I've accomplished something.
Yeah.
in my tenure.
I'm excited to hear
Wow.
that.
Yes, well, I'm saying it's been my crusade. I've mentioned, as you can verify, I've mentioned it several times to IA, and I've been doing that for many years to IA, and they say it's a good idea, but they don't always do it. I think requiring them to do it makes sense.
I think I'm gonna leave here today feeling pretty good.
Well, and number 15.
Hold that thought. Oh, God.
Number 15
Don't say
was
it.
one where I thought that we ought to include various recommendations verbatim to the department's complaint. Investigation system allows investigators to close an investigation with a memo and the findings when the investigator concludes there is insufficient evidence to identify a subject officer. The department should consider auditing complaints that have been closed out with a memo and not fully investigated due to insufficient evidence identifying a subject officer to assess whether the initial investigation to identify the officer was sufficient and whether the investigation was appropriately closed.
Do we like that language, or shall we change it to the department should audit complaints as opposed to the department to consider auditing?
Should is a horrible word.
Yeah, but our recommendation is should, and there.
Well, the fact that we say recommendation is good enough, but then to put in a recommendation, you should do this, it's taking away
People get that mixed up, and I agree with you.
It's taking away the power.
We can use must. We recommend that you
Must do this.
Yeah, we're not saying that you have to.
Yeah.
But when we tell them we're recommending that you must, recommending that you must is kind of the same thing as should.
Right, but it gives emphasis on how we feel about it.
Where is the word to consider?
Department's,
Line 3.
Oh, they should
Audit.
audit.
So one thing I never noticed in case reviews is the original complaint.
It should be there.
Not always.
It's not always.
I know it's not always there, but it should be. I said it should be there. I'm saying it's always there. When I was reviewing cases, if it wasn't there, I would ask for it. Now, sometimes there may not be a document, because if they request a supervisor at the scene, it may be a video. And it could be a telephone call, which is recorded, but there is a complaint, but if they fill out a copy of the complaint form, we can see a copy of the complaint form. If they send an email, we can see the email, and
That's not the case all the time.
Complainants don't always fill out stuff. They try to do it by word of mouth.
And if they do it by word of mouth at the station, how is that captured?
they fill out a form, and then they
Something you should put that on.
Right.
so do you want to have a recommendation that says that we should always receive a copy of the complaint form, and this kind of.
That was already-
Yes, I think it's a given.
Yeah,
It's
given, but
I
it
don't
is a
have to
given.
ask is ridiculous, actually. So,
But that's included in the requirements of the ordinance.
Right.
That they cooperate in giving us all information and evidence that is utilized for this
That's
investigation.
make
And
full
how can they
effort.
have an investigation
Make
if they don't have a
full
complaint?
effort.
yes, why do they feel it's not relevant? I don't know.
I don't think it's they felt it was not relevant, they just are sloppy in what they give to us. And so they've never denied us, when we've asked for it, but,
So we have to ask for it.
They're the
We
highest
shouldn't have to ask for it.
paid department, they have the highest funding. Why are they the sloppiest? Doesn't make any sense.
but we don't know whether or not other departments are sloppy too, but. Doesn't matter. CPP pay style, okay. And we've, anyway, there's no problem with, that should be a no-brainer. Just putting it in writing and maybe remind them that they're not doing that.
Sorry, well, just making note that, even wanted me to let you know that, we always get the complaint form in the complaints folder, so whether that's routines or like regular forms, it's all. For all complaints.
We are getting a call complaints? Okay.
How do we know?
Well, you have to look
The
for it.
top ones, yeah, the top ones. Yeah, you have to look for it. Yeah.
But does he have access to Blue Team or?
No.
Okay, then,
A lot of prison review cases where there is no document from the complaint at all. So I don't know what he's referring to, but I know it's.
okay.
But what if somebody came into the department and there was a,
Or they told another person they can
Yeah.
use complaint form.
Yeah, well, if they come in and they do it verbally, the intake officer fills out a form.
Yeah.
We should get a copy of the form. What, take a quick look. Do you want to include that as a recommendation that they're required to give us the information? Okay. Anybody object to that? Okay, then the last two findings before we get to,
we'll take out consider on both of them.
Say don't or do.
Do.
Thank you.
well, this is from Jerry D. West.
No, I know, yeah.
Even if they recommended it like that, can we change it?
Well, but we have our recommendation below it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
And so,
Just simply forward this one.
So can you explain this recommendation a little bit? I'm just confused about, isn't this what we already do?
that was kind of my thought too, is
Yeah.
that it's what, and he may not know that because he was only looking at the complaints, he wasn't looking at our investigations. You're right, that is what we're supposed to be doing. Although I think that it's, I
think it's just surprising that this is best practice.
Yeah, and I think these are things that we're doing.
And certainly things that our auditor should be doing with Nathan again.
I don't know, I would just, the recommendation is let's keep doing what we're doing.
right, which is, as I said, maybe instead of say should expect it, say are expected.
Or are doing it.
Yeah.
CPP case reviewers are doing this for, I mean, I guess that's not a recommendation. No recommendation, just keep it up.
I
Oh,
think,
actually, I like on the, adding to our form whether or not we think that the investigation was complete and thorough. That's part of what our job is, we never
which
wrote
form?
our report form, our case review form.
The one that we send back to IA.
Ah, I see.
And 17 is also,
So are you gonna edit 16 to say that?
to say what?
To say, that we're doing this, we're gonna add something to say that whether it was complete or not.
Mhm.
Office of Inspector General.
I don't know that, but I've been on it for sure.
Or then 17 is the suggestion that we audit the investigations to determine the circumstances under which allegations are excluded from a full investigation and analysis by the department of whether it's appropriate. I think that relates back to the miscellaneous cases and so forth. And this is something you would do internally. It'd be another job for our performance auditor who will have something to do. So it would not be something we would include in the letter to the chief. What I thought was that they already have a copy of Jerry's report, and so my plan after next week's meeting is to send them a list of recommendations from the CPP, which are the ones we have here, which may get revised next week. Okay. And then the final one would be, as I was explaining when we got here, I think that what Armando was suggesting ties in directly to what we're doing here, and we had it included as part of the recommendation. And in addition to Jerry's report, your email is essentially an audit report.
Yeah.
And you can, but you can submit it as a report.
Yeah.
And
I also wanted a little bit more in depth separately, so I'll provide more details.
okay. Don't go overboard.
I already did, Doug, you know me. I'm sorry, I can't bring myself in, and I'm already
Okay, well, let me ask you to put together a two-page,
from here to
A
there.
2-page, did you hear that? From,
can you do a two-page audit report?
I have 15 pages.
No.
we need a outline. We need just, can you just
Remember, we're
give us
all
a,
volunteers.
Yes.
An executive
audit
summary.
outline?
3 pages.
Okay, 3 pages.
Three pages.
Table
pages.
contents separately.
No table.
Come on.
3
I'm gonna
pages.
go as short as I can, but it's a lot of information because it's a hot mess.
We're not
Let's
doing
do
a
it.
point
Abstract. Outline.
Yes, you can't just read one
Outline.
bond.
Wait,
Points.
Armando, can you just focus on what the end result
Like the
we
point.
want?
Wait, can I show you guys what I'm gonna do? Because there's a lot that needs to be addressed. And I can pull up the website right now and show you guys why I'm addressing certain things and why we need to go in depth
We
on
have
them.
20 minutes left in this meeting, depends on the
Yeah,
agenda.
Alina, do you mind pulling up
Yeah,
the
so my
STPD
recommend-
complaint portal, please?
So what he, well, and actually maybe just, can you get the email that you sent to me?
I want her to pull up the complaint portal. I think that's better. I can go over it.
I think it would be nice to see it.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
So
Anyway, what I'm,
can we allow them to share the entire report for those who want to read the entire report prior to the meeting, but prepare a very short synopsis
So
of the
what-
report?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, let me interview, because what I, if you.
Can I see it?
Wait a second. Okay.
Sorry.
Just keep
I was
identifying.
thinking.
So what I asked Armando was to give us a audit report, 3 pages, at least 10 points. But also to give me something I can put into this memo here that would in one paragraph, and it can be a longer paragraph that explains these are the issues or the deficiencies that I found, and then what the recommendation is, and
Armando, the form is 2 pages.
I know. It's horrible.
okay, and what Eddie suggested, maybe some things can be done immediately, some things may be done more time, so maybe you.
I have something like that. I can read it to you right now if you'd like. What you're describing right now, I have a paragraph that goes over all of it.
Okay, well, we got,
But,
let's do that.
But when you go to the complaint,
Whoa, why don't you read that first, and they'll give us some.
okay, so the policy description I put was, within 90 days, STPD shall deploy a mobile responsive upload interface with maximum 10 file or 2 gigabyte capacity and secure follow-up link. 2, they remove narrative caps and add repeatable multiple officer fields. 3, integrate a social media evidence URL field with hashtag guidance, like New York's complaint process has a hashtag that they can add to videos on social media, directly connects to those files. They should add CloudLink acceptance for like a box holders, things that they, have multiple files. Translate all complaint materials into Spanish, Vietnamese, Tagalog, Chinese, Korean, and Arabic, the top 5 languages that they should be focusing on. Achieve WCAG 2.1 AA compliance, which is accessibility requirements mandated in this country and standard for every web page known to man.
Or woman.
And so that's basically like including like tagged PDFs where you can, if you have voiceover on, you can go through and it will read to you what that field is and what you can put into that. Alt text is where you have an image and it tells you what's in that image. That should be, every image on the SCPD website should be alt text. It's not, none of them are. None of the PDFs can have voiceovers turned on, and you can go through them. They don't have TTY guidance, which is for the deaf community. They don't have any of the guidance needed for any of high contrast styles for people that are colorblind. They don't have anything to do with status tracking for anything to do with the cases. There's no guidance on how to upload videos after the fact. There's no guidance on this. If you go to the very bottom of this form, it says something very interesting. Very bottom, go down, that. So what's next? Turn this into the police station. So after you submit, do you also have to go to the police station for them to
No,
listen to
you can submit right there.
Well, yeah, but like it says what's next? What's
It
next
says
after
or.
this?
You can.
You can turn this in. And so the thing is,
Please turn it.
yeah, and so that entire section though, if I was blind, VoiceOver can't read that. Click on the link. Any of them. You can't.
Oh, it's a
None of-
picture.
None of them are, and that's my point.
So
So
even if your computer has the
exactly.
capability, you won't be able to.
Exactly.
Because it's a PDF, it's like, it's
All
like,
flat.
it's
But
like a
anyway,
picture.
what I would
It's a
like is
picture.
an audit report to identify all these issues in 3 pages. And then to, I don't know where you can summarize,
I have a summary of it for the most part.
okay,
Sorry, go ahead.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Quick answer. Do other City of San Diego forms comply with all of the things that you're listing?
So I actually talked about the social media communications manager for the city today. And I got to understand their ADA compliance mechanism, like the process for how to do this. They just redid the fire department's website for ADA compliance. From my understanding, SDPD is separate. They could reach out to the ADA compliance
That's right.
department and they have chosen not to, or they just haven't thought of it. And so their process has the ability, I mean, they have this entire department that's at their disposal that they can reach out to
Right.
to make sure closed captioning is turned on, to make sure all text is enabled, to make sure
Yeah.
all of these things are addressed.
Got it. Got it.
And they're not. That's it.
okay, well,
That's it.
and what I'm,
So with the commissioner's question kind of going
Yeah.
together, so who actually maintains or their website?
They do it. It is on them
The
entirely,
department.
and they have to be able to communicate with the IT department.
So I was gonna say, I mean, the mayor's budget communication is nice size to.
anyway, I want to remind everybody now,
Okay.
it's now 5:45, and so I will work with,
I wasn't done yet. I'm sorry. Can you
Yeah,
talk about it a little bit more?
No, I was gonna say one quick thing in regards to that.
Yeah.
Most of it, it's law. In California, we are required. I know, at least of everything I've done in my career has been required ADA.
Yeah.
I just looked it up. Can you sum that up by simply saying the website does not meet ADA, American ADA, whatever?
I admit,
So why
There's-
break it
there's
down?
multiple legal statutes that they're not following by doing this. And so I have all of them listed. I have bullet pointed, I have pages
So
on those legal.
don't
It
write
shows.
because you want them to look into it. If you write it out, they're not gonna
I have
look
to, I have to
into
link
it.
to them, and they're already there, but I
okay,
have to
but
make it
again, I
relevant
want, we have several items on the agenda, we don't have time to go.
to. No, I know, I have 2 more things.
No.
You can have 1 more minute and then we'll move on.
Thank you very much. Alina, do you mind going to the middle of the form? Go up to the main complaint. Oh, it's all right. Up one. And so when we look at the bottleneck issue, right? So if you look at New York's intake form for just the officer information, it makes it look like it's necessary, like you have to enter that information. Doesn't give you guidance on whether that officer is unknown to you, like if you don't know anything about them. Anything to do with descriptors for it, and that's the bottleneck. They tend to throw these cases out and not investigate them, from what we understand. The character limit also affects people that speak different languages, because if you translate anything from the English word count of 250 in Spanish, let's say,
It's
it increases
1,500.
1,500 characters, not
Not
letters, not
words.
words.
So think
That's
about
250
it.
words.
That's a dot, a period.
Yeah, and so
wow.
that translates to,
Yeah.
if you translate any 250 word count thing from English to Spanish, that usually adds 20 to 30% more words. per character.
Okay, well, your minute is up.
That was all I wanted to make sure that you guys understood.
What I would
Thank
like
you
to,
for that, because you
Yeah.
made it very clear.
Yeah,
what I would like to do is to have a brief recommendation that categorizes the types of, not the details, the types of issues, like accessibility issues, instruction issues, limitations on being able to upload documents and so forth. So put those in simple words in the recommendation, and then go into detail in your, and refer to, and recommendation will refer to your audit report. So the audit report.
Is that fair?
I assume you're gonna send me an email on this, right?
Yes, we'll talk tonight.
Okay, well, I can do that by tomorrow, if that's something you like, and I'll try to condense it to 3 pages. Can't promise, it might be 4, but I'll do my best.
No, it cannot be 4.
It's a short
Okay,
notice.
Alex, I didn't want to move on.
Yeah, I want to bring a motion as to new business item, as to agenda item 7, new business items C and D. Those are going to require some discussion, so I move that we defer those until our next meeting, and then and right now go on to extend.
Okay, and let me tell you what I wanted to do is see, and I think I can do that in a minute. What I'm going to request is that we have a workshop at our July meeting on the issue of our conflict of interest policy, with some recommendations from our council, looking at different scenarios, having feedback from the commission, and then after that workshop, we would revise our conflict of interest policy and perhaps our bylaws accordingly. Okay, and so I didn't want to discuss that today, but I wanted to discuss the process, and then okay, I think we need to have a motion if people are
On board.
Yeah.
okay, and then the issue of overtime is not timely. It's not maybe the right word, but maybe we can ask our policy manager to see if there are policies of other departments and what they have on limitations on overtime and how much time there is, and then we can maybe make an informed recommendation to the department. Okay.
Does this issue of overtime come into the purview of the CPD?
Well,
Practice.
possibly, but the issues that Steve raised and raised in the report here were not necessarily whether they can do overtime or how much overtime they can do. The issue is officer safety and public safety when you don't have adequate, when you're working too much, you don't have enough trust between things, and so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you could look at this.
Especially the
I
ones that
remember
are
this,
driving.
I saw another one about this.
There was an example of like this one officer, like working like 16 hours, having 2 hours off, and then going back to work again. Like that's like a ripe environment for
I don't believe it.
horrible policing.
Yeah,
Yeah?
I don't believe it.
Oh.
Anyway, I don't want to get into
Think of
discussion now, but I would
hear
like
you on that.
that if we could have
Because
some,
it's not
if we could
policy.
have some research on whether other departments have a policy. And again, it's not policy on whether you can have overtime in the budget. The issue is the public safety issue.
I have
Exactly.
an action item for possibly next meeting. This is a public document, right? Recently came out. I think it's fair if we find out of the documents that are released with the times, if he was driving that day. You cannot drive if you don't sleep 8 hours.
Exactly.
Is that a law?
I'm pretty sure it's in the procedure, absolutely.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, absolutely. That's human, like, yeah.
Like
Okay.
biologically.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're gonna move this along until the next meeting, and We'll go to standing committees, rules committee.
Yeah, I'll keep this quick. We're, again, continuing step by step on a major rewrite of our bylaws. And if anybody has any input, please send your input my way. And we actually didn't schedule our next meeting, but it should be that off Wednesday, next Wednesday between meetings. So that's it. We didn't schedule a meeting.
So between the first and the second, or between?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
The second Wednesday then?
correct, if that works for everybody. And
What
I'll,
time?
at 4:30 to 6.
Because I finally scheduled my first meeting on June
Oh.
5th at 5.
It would be June 5th.
No. No.
Oh, you're
It'll be the
after.
11th.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, community outreach.
Yeah, we had our last meeting on the 15th of May. Our next meeting is June 12th. At our last meeting, we went over, we created a draft of short-term and long-term goals so we know where we are and where we want to go. We began our review of our own website to see what improvements can be made, continuing with that. We also requested and succeeded in getting a new photo of the commission. We weren't there.
You was Bonnie.
You were there. He was
Bonnie.
there.
I was
Yes,
there.
you were there.
when we
Yes.
were-
Oh, yes.
sorry. Anyway, we
You were
got,
there, but
Yeah, I wasn't
it
there
was
for
several
that
people that were there.
We're gonna Photoshop Bonnie.
and then,
She wasn't there. Yeah, that's what it was.
Bonnie wasn't there. And then, the other more important thing is we've been requesting for quite a while to have a master calendar so commissioners can sign up for presentations or
Yes.
appearances. And we actually have it. It still has bugs that need to be worked out, but Commissioner Molnar's listed herself 3 times. I'm on it. Commissioner Honoré is on it. Commissioner Case is signed up for things.
I did not sign up, but I just sent Yadson an email for the June 18th meeting. I want to attend. It's human relations. So I sent that, but now I can go there. Is that what you're telling me?
So I don't know if you
Okay.
plan on sharing this with the full commission, but what Yasmin has said she'd do with.
Yeah, we all got it.
Yeah.
We all got it.
Well, I didn't realize what the plan is, which I feel super comfortable, I'm glad this is her plan, is I go with her. One time, I'm doing nothing, I'm sitting there soaking it all in. I mean, maybe if somebody asks me, I will answer a question or whatever. Then hopefully I can actually do them on my own.
Oh, okay.
So that's what her goal is.
Okay, that's cool.
Right.
Why,
I like
why
that.
she put me on the spot on my first one? then?
No.
Oh, did
it's
you?
nothing- nothing to that.
Why did you have to talk?
Piece of cake.
No, she said she's gonna cut me into the presentation.
Oh, really?
We have 5 minutes.
She didn't show up when I was.
Okay, let's go.
But anyway, that was the one success. And the last item is our budget. Armando has done yeoman work on this, has done tremendous work on the budget. So do you want to talk about the?
Just a quick
efforts of
thing,
the outreach budget?
Quick
this is
thing.
quick, I promise. The interim, Yasmin worked with Bart and John A. and we all, and we worked with Jaime, and we got $20,000 allocated to use for promotional materials to engage community and community events, as well as T-shirts for events.
Oh,
And we're trying to open a PO by the end of the week. John is looking into the specifics on whether we can get these items before the June 30th deadline. And then, this is for the rest of the year. We're gonna assess where we're at and if we need this many promotional items or if we need more or how we meet that specifically, because we've never had this before. So this is the first, but this will allow us to do more outreach. So
I'm
Yeah,
It's
impressed.
all
Good job.
due to Armando's work.
That's awesome. And
And
just,
that completes our report on outreach.
well, just to your report, we always keep talking about location. So I am offering my park, Mountain View. I'm going through all the whole process to become all the permits, all of everything. I'm doing all that fun stuff. But there's parking, there's space. I mean, we can do it outside if you have to, but it's not like huge, but it's something as
It's all-
far as outreach.
that sounds great.
That's,
Well,
we gotta give it to John.
Yeah, you're gonna
Yeah, we'll talk
Janae.
to,
And
Janae,
yes,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, we gotta figure out the day and all that, and then
Yes.
really give it to John. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Clovis,
Just very quickly, you said $20,000 and you said the rest of the year. Is that the rest of the fiscal year? or
That's the rest
calendar
of
year?
this year. We're getting this in before the
Is
end of
this
the
the
fiscal
rest
year.
of the fiscal year or the rest
Oh,
of
for
the
this
calendar?
fiscal year,
year.
sorry.
Okay,
June
Yeah,
30th.
This is not for next fiscal year yet.
gotcha.
I don't want to start a long discussion, but I would like to bring up the idea of having polo shirts for the commission.
yikes, I look so cute.
And we did that with the CRB, but they wouldn't let us use city funds for it. They said it was a gift, and so people had to buy their own. And actually, one
Oh, no, I'm
affluent commissioner,
volunteering.
We'll put it on the agenda for next outreach.
Okay,
Oh, for
anyway,
outreach, we need
moving on,
shirts
okay.
for outreach.
Training.
Yes.
Anything to report?
Training, oh, thank you. I have, well, remember, our committee isn't meeting because there's not support for that right now. But me personally, I have a question because NACOL is having a seminar on artificial intelligence and how that impacts our work. And I was wondering, are you guys on it? I mean,
Yeah, we're on it.
Okay.
I got that email
and then you
yesterday.
can share with us what we need to know
Sure.
from that.
Sure.
And then,
Well, if any commissioner wants to attend a NACOL training, just let Alina know.
And it's online, super short. I think it's only an hour and 15 minutes.
And so there's usually a small charge, but the commission pays for it. So if you're interested in going to one,
it's an hour
Oh, I've
and a
just
half.
been paying for
It's
them.
an hour and a half.
Oh, no.
really?
Yeah.
No, just
So,
let us know.
Shame on you.
So
Okay.
maybe- Actually,
Shame.
if I could, I'll ask Alina just to send, I have an email with the link to it. I'll send that to you and you can send it out to all the
Thank
commissioners.
you.
And
That'd be
then
great.
tell them they just need to let you, yeah,
Okay,
perfect. And then
policy.
my
sorry.
my last question about training is regarding how we wanted to be able to go to post. And I don't know if you had any further thoughts about that, but we can't for the IA training, to learn what IA training gets. And, well, no, because the training that IA gets through post, right, isn't that what it was? Or it's through something where they said, no, commissioners can't come. But Ethan could maybe go, but that doesn't
Alec,
give the commissioner.
We just call you Ethan.
Are you already going?
no, I didn't know about it. I just made a note to look it up.
Right,
Yeah, so-
I don't know if you, because I.
Yeah, I mean, I think that post trains police law enforcement officers. And they said they're not willing to do it for commissioners who are not law enforcement officers.
Right.
They may be able to fit an investigator into that category, and if so, I think that would be a good thing for
We have less than 1 minute.
him to do.
Oh, mine's quick. Me?
Go ahead.
Policy. Okay, yay, we're kicking off our meeting June 5th at 5 o'clock here. We're going to do just what we've been doing, which is review the 12 policy areas selected for strategic review, walk through oversight recommendations from Jerry's reports, which we pretty much did, begin grouping related issues into thematic clusters to guide committee workflow, confirm the date and goals for our summer policy retreat. So that would be a good outreach collaboration. Begin initial conversations around commission role, research,
Sure, that
interest,
could be
and
good.
public hearing formats. And here's meetings. Our tentative date is June 26, 2025 as our second meeting, just to get it on the calendar. Because we're gonna have to meet and then have another meeting. After we get all that together, we meet, and then we're gonna go into our retreat. And we're gonna have to decide that at one of those meetings on the retreat time, which of course we wanna send a calendar out to everyone, because we want everyone there as much as possible. And I know summertime and all that's travel time, so somehow we can get together. That would be amazing. Oh, is that concluding my report? Jeez.
How many people are in the
Good.
committee policy?
How many is there? I think we went to 5
I'm
and
including
we're, yes,
Okay.
and we are leaving room for our newcomers, our new commissioners. I think we were leaving like maybe 2 seats open, hopefully, to add. And all that good stuff. That's okay. We got some good next steps.
Recruitment committee, briefly.
Oh my God. Excuse you. So I created a 35-page recruitment manual that will be used for, I've submitted to Doug and Barb to get kind of feedback on, and as well as all the other shareholders, which all of the staff, to really determine where to go next with this. I got some feedback from Doug so far, and so I've started integrating that feedback in, but it goes over the roles and responsibilities of each department. It goes over the outreach and recruitment strategy, the application nomination process, preliminary vetting and shortlisting, interview protocol and evaluation, commission deliberation and selection process, city council review and confirmation process, how we work with them. And then there's also an example timeline and milestone segment that goes over January through August, how everything goes and works. There's some feedback from that. I'm integrating, it's a visual timeline, so it's there and it can be posted somewhere. And the goal is to use this and translate it onto our website for everyone to know the clear, process as they're applying for this position on the commission.
I like it.
And that's it.
And the goal for,
He did it.
and the goal for getting that to the commission is when?
A year from, I'm just kidding. No, I'm gonna aim for like, not next meeting, but the next one after that's a closed commission, so probably July, I would say, because it's a lot of edits to go into, and I'll make sure it's perfect, so.
That's people.
Yeah, I'll get it to the July meeting, the first one.
And one reason why I think I want to get that done as soon as possible is we may have, we know we weren't going to have a full commission after they make the commission appointments. So we can use some of the processes as kind of a pilot program to make recommendations to the city council, because we can't make recommendations until we have a policy, and that's why he's developing the policy, then we'll be able to make recommendations.
Yes, and it has come to my attention that council members are waiting on our policy.
Oh, they are?
Yes.
Wait, wait, I didn't know this.
They don't need to wait.
They can email me directly, they can give me like an idea.
No, they just want to know how are we getting along.
Oh, yeah.
That's all. Okay, so I have.
For any council member watching, July.
Okay. We got it.
Anyway, that's the thing I've been pushing for, and so I gave it to Armando because I knew that he would get it done. It may be long, but he would get it done, and he did, or almost done. So,
2 weeks.
Ad hoc committee reports, operating procedures. We're going before City Council on Monday, 2 o'clock. Personnel.
Personnel, the kickoff meeting of the ad hoc committee of the city council, which is comprised of Council President Joe LaCava and Council Member Foster, as well as Clovis, Bonnie, me, and John Armentrout. Will not be meeting until after the budget's put to bed and the issue about how much trash costs put to bed. And then we need to deal with everybody's summer schedule.
Yeah,
So I don't know when that's gonna be yet.
That's okay. It's a lot.
Okay. And nominating committee, I have a couple of questions regarding the process for next week. The nominating committee has at least one nominee for each of the positions. They sent out a questionnaire, and those are due back by Friday. I was hoping they would come to the chair, and then the chair would collect them all, so that Alina doesn't have to do it. But they said to send them to Alina.
Yeah.
They're going to the chair. They're going to the chair of the nomination committee.
And so anyway, I won't. If you can coordinate to make sure those all get in before Alina has to submit the agenda on Friday.
Absolutely.
And so each of the nominees will have a written statement. Do you want to go ahead and say who the nominees are?
No, because we're.
Okay. I would say no.
No, it's good.
Okay.
No. And my question is, since they're doing written statements, I still think we ought to give them an opportunity to make a brief statement at the meeting. So I'm thinking of 1 minute per nominee. And I don't think they need to make an additional, maybe give them 30 seconds if they say they're nominated for chair, they don't get elected chair, and they want to run for first vice chair. I think they should maybe have an additional 30 seconds. They want to talk about that office specifically. The question of do we want to ask questions and answers? My thought was to allow 3 questions with 1 minute responses each. Does that sound okay?
What was the purpose of
Draconian.
like the written?
And the written is fully optional. It was just and it says it on there because we want to make sure the community has an opportunity to know who the candidates are. And if they want to speak on it, they can during the meeting. But We also, as commissioners, can see it on Friday when the agenda comes out, because all of the responses will be added to that. And so whoever has turned those in, we're gonna include them,
Friday.
and if you haven't,
Friday
then
noon.
everyone will know, just kidding. But,
We have to turn in the agenda.
yeah,
stuff by
so it'll be in the agenda,
Mhm.
and we have responses already there, so if yours isn't in there, then yours is gonna be one of the only ones.
Is there a time frame that it would be done?
Thursday night is when they're due,
Friday
And,
noon, is what it said.
well, Friday is when we want them, because we wanna include them in the agenda, and, Alina will get mad at you if you don't. turn
Who's
them in.
running?
Well,
You already asked that question, so you didn't want
He said he
to.
doesn't want to
No,
say,
I'm-
we're not gonna say right now, because the chair did, anyways,
It takes time.
you'll find out on Friday when the agenda comes out. And so is there any objection to having 3 questions? And then there would be discussion. So, but, or do you want to even do question and answer?
So I want to actually get the chair to explain what his job is.
Okay, why can't?
Not right now.
No, I can do that for you.
But just to
Well,
start
yeah,
it, to like,
yeah.
what are the responsibilities?
Yeah, so
of
for
the
each
chair,
position,
for those
I'd be
that
happy to
are too
explain
scared?
what the position does,
Yes.
ask for nominations from the floor, and then give each person 1 minute to speak.
Yes.
Do you want to do Q&A? Or you just want to go into discussion?
We need a lot of time for that.
So, okay, so question and answer, is 3 questions sufficient?
Yeah.
3 questions, and 1 minute answers, and,
I say maximum 3 questions, so it's
yeah, what-
not 3
it
questions
doesn't mean,
is
yeah, 'cause
maximum.
when you get the list, you'll see we have a lot of nominees. So
So how much time is it
Can
being
we ask
allocated
that
on the agenda for this?
reach out to the nomination committee chair and ask her to define this process for us with the help of the group? Because
Yeah,
that's
good
her,
question.
and
Yeah.
her specific
Yeah,
role
you
is
were
to do
correct.
this and determine the nomination process, isn't it?
Yeah, sort of, but the chair runs the meeting, and so I'll discuss it with her.
Because I think her feedback would be important, and she should have some input.
Yeah, well, I did discuss it with her after the meeting last week. But I can follow up with her.
Thank you.
And I think that's the last
One more
item.
commissioner comment.
You indicated there are a significant number of nominees.
Mhm.
Have we looked at the agenda for that meeting and assessed
Yeah.
how much
about
time can be allocated to this process on that agenda without disturbing the rest of the agenda?
Well, we have to do the elections, we'll do the elections first. The only 2 major items on the agenda are going to be the recommendations that we just went over. And hopefully we can,
Get through that.
hopefully we can limit it to ones they want to pull from the recommendations. And then those are the key items on the agenda right now are the elections, which we'll do first, and then we will do the recommendations regarding the complaint process. And I think that's the only thing I can think of for business on. Does anybody else has anything else you think we need to be doing?
Mm-mm. Nope.
To add a
You know
little
what?
time, we can do something maybe like noon or 1 on Friday
That sounds
to
good.
give more specific.
That's I know it's a short deadline, and I'm sorry.
Well, I think the email that was sent out, we were given until noon
Oh,
on Friday.
okay.
So noon on Friday
on
is already
Friday.
been that date.
To get your canvas taken in.
When we initially talked as a group, it was gonna be Thursday night, and I'm so sorry, you're right, it does say that.
Okay.
Yeah, my apologies.
Okay.
Now, I know Commissioner Benitez has been doing this for a little while, but with regard to this meeting and this agenda, we've received a significant number of reports, virtually all of them verbal reports. And I'm wondering if it would not be efficacious both for our agenda and for our edification if there is some way for these reports to come to us in a written form prior to this meeting so they can be digested without having to be necessarily copiously discussed at this particular meeting.
The answer to that is yes, if the committee chairs are willing to submit their reports in writing by noon on Friday before the meeting, because that's how we would get them attached to the agenda.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I think you brought that up before, and like I said, I didn't know until an hour before the meeting, the information that I
You know,
shared.
you can always add something as they come up, but that would save time with the meeting.
Well, I would argue that what we spent time on is the thing we had
Yeah,
in writing.
we didn't spend a lot of time on the community
Just
reports, but still, I still think it would be a
It's a good idea.
good idea.
If we can process.
I'm
Yeah, so-
wondering if this meeting needs to not be an hour and a half.
Be less than or more than?
I think it needs to be 2 hours probably.
I think we'll find a way to fill up 2 hours the same way we fill up 1 hour and a half.
Okay,
I know, my thought is, and I only have one more executive committee meeting, but putting it as an hour and a half, if we go over, at least we know that if we make it 2 hours, what's gonna happen? It's gonna go to 2 hours and
I
15 minutes,
understand.
whatever.
Who do
it
we
is.
have to talk to change the Browns Act so that we can like?
This guy over here.
Those guys up there suck.
No power
And
to
actually, actually, there have been attempts in the legislature to change it, but they have not,
It's not
Who do I
happening.
have to complain to? I mean, we can't get what you don't ask for.
Legislators.
yeah,
state
complain to your
Yeah.
state senator and your assembly member. I'll give you their contact numbers.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay. Okay, then we are adjourned, and actually we got a lot accomplished, and hopefully we can, because of that, we can.
Don't forget to get your
everything
parking
accomplished
done if you need it.
Oh, yes, thank you for